2016 was a pretty big time in my life. It was the year I started making this specific series of YouTube videos. I graduated high school, and it was the year I built my very first custom computer. It was the year I met one of my best friends, the same friend who became my brother-in-law this past May in 2021.
She's melting.
It was the year I got one of the most important items to me sentimentally. 2016, in spite of all the bad that happened in my life, was overall a wonderful time. 5 years later, this year, in 2021, I'd have 15,000 people following me on that YouTube channel that I made in high school on a whim to express my thoughts on a subpar weapon. I'm telling you this because I've just gone through a huge emotional drain. Quite literally, everything changed in a heartbeat. Change is good sometimes, but sometimes too much change can be more harmful than helpful. July 7th, 2016, an update would be pushed for Team Fortress 2 that would ruffle a lot of feathers, change things in an arguably worse way, and introduce a mode that has become a standard in most online games since then. And I'm here to tell you about it. So, my name's Cody.
My name's Jesus and
My name is Brennan.
My name's Local.
My name's Jack5.
My name's Slurpy the Dog.
Master of the highest channel.
Crazy Alpha 7.
My name is Borker.
My name is Ben506.
And we're here to ask one simple question.
And hopefully get one simple answer.
How bad can it be?
Okay, that was in unison on my end. That's good enough.
I felt I played like one or two matches in the official Valve competitive mode, and I wasn't a fan. Because they tried to take some of like the 6v6 format, but not enough of it.
The thing that killed it most, I think, would be the long wait times. I think people would be more willing to give it a go if it had better wait times, and it's just a shame it didn't work out.
On day one, I didn't think about the long wait times. It was still a fresh update and there was a lot to explore. But after 1 week, I really missed the old system.
I think this kind of somewhat sealed the fate of Team Fortress as kind of one of like the back projects.
Meet your match. One of the most requested and hyped updates to turn into what is my opinion one of the biggest ball drops to ever grace Team Fortress. Give me back my quick play!
Meet Your Match was the official competitive update after the mode spent a year in beta. I actually was among the group of people to beta test the competitive mode, not that I remember what the experience was like, or that it was a particularly exclusive honor, because it seems like everybody was. The update also brought back an old staple of multi-day updates when on the second day it was revealed that there would be a war between the Heavy and Pyro. The winner would receive an entire update to themselves with a slew of rebalances and weapons to go along with it. Meet versus Match would function differently to the War update in that players opted into a team and all points scored would be applied to the total nearing the end of the event, regardless of the class played. That update would go on to be the Jungle Inferno update, which may become a topic of a video later, but for today, let's discuss the matter at hand. It's easy to summarize things like I just did, and I'm willing to bet that you're not watching to hear me act like everything by the end of the event was a-okay. There were a lot of glaring issues facing Meet Your Match, and while some of them could be ironed out and patched, some of them were based on a lot of different factors that simply could not change. The update itself wasn't terrible, it just seemed sort of unneeded and poorly handled when it came to an update that no doubt was seen by Valve as a way to bring Team Fortress 2 into the modern era, when esports was sort of taking off from being something only done by small groups of people at LAN parties to being seen as a legitimate sport with contracts and teams and organizations and leagues. In that time, we've seen people like Ninja take mainstream media by storm, and the Overwatch League... Oh, I can't talk about that one anymore. Well, the point that I'm trying to make here is that there are a lot of games with thriving esports scenes, and TF2's leagues have sort of been around since the start of this rise, with people like Seagull starting in TF2 and moving on to other games later because Valve really didn't support community competitive, and it left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, especially seeing how much cash, time, and support was dumped into Dota 2 and CSGO's competitive scenes. Consider this, Valve in 2011 and 2012 helped fund the Dota 2 International with a $1 million prize pool donated by them. In 2013 on, CSGO that year at the very least, and Dota 2 every year since, would have tournament prize pools raised by the community through an in-game fundraiser of sorts, or via a battle pass system with Dota 2. Meanwhile, the TF2 community had to raise money themselves just to send 2 teams to Insomnia, and they only raised around $20,000 to do so, which was enough, but a significant portion was donated by community member Salamancer. But if you're interested in hearing more about that, I would recommend watching Ready Up, a competitive Team Fortress 2 documentary made by Scrap.tf and Marketplace.tf founder Gil. It's up on YouTube, it's free to watch, and it's only a little over an hour long. In 2015, at the start of Gunmetal, a small undocumented item was added to the game. The TF2 competitive beta pass was slowly distributed to members of a Steam group who applied, and yours truly actually got a pass from that Steam group. This was to, as the name implies, give access to the beta of the TF2 competitive mode, which was your standard 6v6 fair, but that was pretty much it. There was a Highlander mode planned at some point, but that's as far as it got. The idea of an official ranked matchmaking system from Valve was a wonderful start to something good, or so we thought. Something to remember about TF2's competitive leagues is that all of the rules and stipulations set forth are not arbitrary, we hate fun stipulations. They're tested, they're tried, and they're true. They work. They balance the game out for a 6v6 mode because with like 160 something weapons, you're simply not going to balance them all evenly for all possible modes, official or unofficial at all. And Valve did try to do that to keep all items competitive legal, which obviously will quickly throw up issues. That's not even mentioning the starting map pool was a questionable decision at best. And I mean, even today, Gorge, Turbine, these aren't optimal choices for a competitive environment. Balance is a complicated thing, and community leagues have banned some things for being overpowered in these game modes where there are so many fewer players on the field at any time for a good reason. Uncle Dane covered in a video a concept called trickle-down balance, which essentially says if something is balanced at the highest level of play, it'll remain balanced the farther down the tree it goes. But the thing with that is I don't completely agree with that statement here. Sure, maybe if you stacked 24 high-level competitive players and balanced weapons out that way, regular 12v12 matches might become perfectly balanced. Competitive sixes, though, that's a whole separate battlefield. Let's talk about the Sydney Sleeper, for example. A lot of people on that video were quick to point out that it's banned in competitive sixes and that means it's overpowered, which is a really dumb thing to say. In 12v12, it's an average weapon. It allows for easier kills on targets via the rest of your team, thus making it a good support, but in competitive 6s, you have 6 less people already, and any damage vulnerability debuff is going to make a far more disastrous impact than if you have 12 people and lose just 1. You've gone from losing 8.33% of your team to 16.66%. Which is a fairly predictable doubling of percentage, it's simple math, but a whole lot more of a loss. That's only one example, but there are a good many, and that's why we implemented a segment to talk about the difference in 6v6 to casual where applicable since Medic Melees in March of this year, 2021. There's a discussion to be had on this front about Highlander 9v9, but given that it's not applicable here, we'll omit it for now. When you take all of that into account, and humor me when I ask the question, who's the fucking wise guy that decided it was easier to try to balance all the weapons rather than just use the global whitelist the community had already tested and had ready for the taking? Again, Valve seemingly didn't want to address the community as a whole, but rather address them individually. I'm not going to say they invited Banny for input on balance, but what I am saying is they invited arguably the most popular TF2 competitive player who traditionally does not have great balance opinions to seemingly discuss the update with, and he seemed to be pretty happy with the balance changes.
This can be the definitive Pyro Air Blast rant. In today's meta, the way that a Pyro plays this game is he air blasts, okay? So basically the degreaser is currently just straight up better than this weapon because sure, this weapon might do more damage, but it switches slower. The actual thing in question is also completely fucked because you can be behind someone and air blast their fucking rockets. It's so forgiving. That's the problem. You don't have to be looking at the thing that you're air blasting. It could be way to the side. It could be way above you. You should have to have your fucking crosshair on the thing that you want to air blast. Like, sure, there could be like a cone. Like, there already is a cone, right? It should just be tighter. Because obviously you need to like be able to
A lot of what I'm about to say is largely speculation because ultimately the only people who know what happened behind those doors is Banny and Valve. But it seemed odd and yet not surprising at all that they invited Banny. Banny himself I can't speak of on a personal basis, but he is well known for hating pretty much anything that he doesn't know how to properly play against because it's not 6v6 and doesn't think it's important, which is a mindset that has become pretty synonymous with the competitive community. The mindset that anything that's not 6v6 is not important and doesn't need to be there, I mean. It's what a lot of people jump to when they think of competitive players, largely because it's just the vibe that Banny gives off of. And to a lot of casual players, this is the one and only competitive player they know of. The guy is practically the face of competitive TF2, for better or worse. He has somewhat of a reputation among some competitive players that I've spoken to, who I won't name, obviously, because I don't want to be a dick about it. Allegedly being guilty of poaching players, which is essentially recruiting them under the nose of a team that they were going to sign with or were in talks with for Froyo Tech, and then smearing reputations if they dare to decline, and even booting his own best friend for a marginally better player. Again, all of this is alleged, but if true, it's sort of telling on the kind of person Banny is. But I've ribbed into him enough, so I guess it's time to give the benefit of the doubt. To give the guy some credit, he doesn't seem like a bad guy per se, but rather someone who takes his position pretty seriously, almost to a fault. He definitely has a competitive spirit and wants to have the best team possible, as you would in his situation, but that can often result in coming off like an asshat. But Business is business, and sometimes it can be a dog-eat-dog world. It doesn't seem to come off as mean-spirited, but he definitely stands out from other competitive players, and that's probably what made him the face of that community. Banny isn't really a good choice of a player to have had visit if there really was only going to be one guy, if you ask me. But ultimately, we don't get to choose who gets traction on the internet, do we? I can only speculate that Banny did have some kind of say in the balance changes. Again, he seemed fairly overall happy with some of them, but Pyro didn't get nerfed either, so who's really to say? The update did have at least one major issue after launch. Nobody could play the fucking game! Meet Your Match had a complete overhaul of the way the game works, and I get asked a lot in streams sometimes, if you have 2,500 hours, why are you only level 60-ish? And the answer, kids, is because the game used to not have levels. The game used to work entirely on its own, with no ranks or rewards given for leveling up. I mean, there still aren't rewards, but I digress. I don't remember how long this lasted specifically, but by at least July 22nd of that month, they reported that they were still working on reducing those queue times. Also, by the end of it, Pyro won the war. I'm not mad, you're mad. Hashtag Team Heavy for life. The update wasn't generally well accepted by everyone. At the beginning of day one, there were more strict implementations on matchmaking, which really hit some people pretty badly. It was quickly changed, but for those few hours, if you wanted to play just High Tower or just 2 Fort, you might have spent all day waiting just to have gotten into the other map or mode that you were required to have selected. I myself liked most additions, but I remember distinctly having my game crash due to a lackluster computer at the time, and it managed to do it enough in a short enough time that I was forced to wait even longer due to the casual leave penalty, which, I mean, it's ridiculous, right? Implementing a casual leaving penalty? It's casual! Maybe I just wanted to play a few rounds, but the game went on too long. There's a lot of reasons someone might leave early, and I have even found Steam forum threads as recent as 2018 with people still saying casual penalties were an okay thing and that they should be re-implemented. Putting all of that aside, I've brought in a few of my past guests and friends to give their thoughts on the update, whether it be first-hand experience or afterthoughts as a player who wasn't there. Whatever the case, I will let them explain themselves.
What I think about Meet Your Match? To be honest, Meet Your Match was my first big update that I realized would happen. I was super hyped about it and tried to get as much information as possible. On day 1 I didn't think about the long wait times, it was still a fresh update and there was a lot to explore. But after 1 week I really missed the old system. Back then you had to select 2 game modes and couldn't select a specific map for it. It never really took me hours to get into a match, but I felt like the casual part of TF2 was gone. No map selection after a match, wait times before the round and just no hour-long experience on a map anymore. I played a lot of community servers at the time, but ultimately I returned back to casual because of the easy access. Long story short, the beginning felt very strange and it felt super rushed, but all the improvements like map selection, map voting, and navigating while waiting made it a lot better.
Meet Your Match. One of the most requested and hyped updates to turn into what is my opinion one of the biggest ball drops to ever grace Team Fortress. I mean really, who made this update? It gave us a level system that no one cares about and really doesn't even mean anything. It took away quick play, one of my favorite ways to find a match in any game I've really ever played. And also, it gave us a competitive matchmaking system that basically doesn't even work. They basically just cobbled together a server browser and gave it a matchmaking system and it's like, alright, here you go, here's your competitive matchmaking, and then just quit. God damn it, Valve! Give me back my quick play!
Google, show me this guy's balls. Okay, how the fuck do I start this though? One take. The Meet Your Match update was around the time I actually started playing TF2 again. Like, I first started playing in 2014? Like, I just played it for a little bit and then I stopped. because I was I don't forget how old I was, but I was like, oh look, you can be spy TF2, you know, like every single kid starting off playing TF2, they want to be the edgy spy main. Oh, I can backstab and go invisible and whatever, you know. I stopped playing for 2 years, and then, yeah, when the Meet Your Match update came out was when I started playing again. It was around that time when I was still doing the heavy versus pyro shit. I was team heavy. That was when the competitive matchmaking was new, right? So, yeah, that's around the time where I started playing TF2 again. I was getting to that competitive matchmaking thing at the time. That and pastime. I was actually decent enough at the competitive thing, at the competitive matchmaking mode, but that was like super fucking scuffed, so that doesn't really mean anything. All of those updates, all of that shit was happening. I don't remember the balance and all of that, but I do remember all of the, like, it was fun, you know? It was like, oh wow, back in the TF2 after a while, they got this new matchmaking, they're doing this competition where you play one class or another again, you know? It was a good time, I'd say. I don't really know how like most people feel about it. I just remember having a fun time getting back into TF2 after like 2 years of just not touching it. Big earner as spy, which totally gives 25 health on kill around that time up until like the Blue Moon update. It was around there. I don't fucking remember actually. I'm just gonna bring that back up because it's gonna piss a lot of people off and I think that's funny. But yeah, the Meet Your Match update, I think it was good. That was like start of my TF2 peak. A little bit like a year after was, I'd say, my TF2 peak where I was actually like nutty. Yeah, good times all around. I'd give that update a fucking 4 balls out of 5, you know. Pretty epic.
Hi. So this is my recording sent to Pop Top, whatever the numbers are. Hopefully he will edit this kindly and not make me look like an absolute buffoon. So the Meet Your Match update was interesting to say the least, right? I think this kind of somewhat sealed the fate of Team Fortress as kind of one of like the back projects in a lot of ways, and it was mainly because I don't think Valve was getting what they had expected out of the update. For a lot of people, this opened the doors to competitive. I would have to say. I think that prior to this, competitive was just really hard to approach in terms of like having to get a whole community competitive thing set up, and a lot of people just weren't willing to do that, right? You know, like if you have a bunch of people, you know, and they're working full time or they're busy with school or whatever, you know, they're not gonna want to sit down and have to, you know, register and get this whole team set up. They just wanted to, it should be as simple as playing CSGO. You just hop on, you click Q, you're good to go. And that's what the Meet Your Match update hoped to achieve. Did it do this? I would say it was a step in the right direction. Prior to actually releasing the Meet Your Match, they had like a ticket system where you could actually gain access to competitive before, and from what I remember, the matchmaking system was pretty good. The other thing is that, I mean, at least in present day too, you have so many like ranks and not enough people, so like it is like actually impossible to currently play competitive TF2 if you get to a high enough rung. It's divided into day 1 and day 2. In day 1, you have obviously the release of competitive, and day 2, Meet Your Match becomes Meet versus Match, and it's Meet with an A, which is kind of funny. This is where it becomes the heavy versus the pyro, and basically you get to choose which one's going to actually get an update. Now, both of these classes were, in dire need of an update. Heavy is pretty standard to play. It's not that there's like, alternative playstyles, but they're kind of a joke in comparison to like the alternate playstyles in like the Demo Man, which is like the Demo Manite and stuff like that. And I think what really wound up here was, there's a popular video that was going around, and it was like the pyro could literally, like his flame particles were so broken, you could just kind of like do like a windmill of flame and everyone would just die, So it was either fix the boring class or fix the actually broken class, and people voted for the actually broken one. You know, it would be cool if we saw the day where Heavy won. You know, I'm interested in what that is, but I think overall it was probably the better of the two options there. And that's really, like, you know, we haven't really had major updates since then. It's really just been, you know, bug fixes, you know, cosmetic crates and stuff like that. It really kind of sealed the fate for Team Fortress 2, which is what I was trying to say earlier. You know, there's not really much going on with it right now, aside from, you know, it's really just a skeleton crew that will occasionally, like, waltz into the, you know, wherever they make TF2, and you just, you know, update core things. You know, it's hard to not talk about Valve, and it's hard to not talk about, you know, other parts of Team Fortress 2. Without mentioning this update, because this is a pivotal update for Team Fortress 2. It really kind of set the stage for where we are today, because it's basically the last main one. And you know, that's pretty much the update. Overall, pretty decent update. I wish they continued updating the game, but you know, you can't get everything in life, I guess. All right, that's been a wrap. You owe me. I want a Robo sandwich. You can give me that as payment. Send it to my PO box. I'll put that. I'll send you that. Don't worry. And yeah. All right. See you guys later. Bye bye.
As far as Meet Your Matches issues go, I'm running low on things to talk about at this point, but we're not done yet. Competitive in its current state is about the same as it has been any usual year. I interviewed 4 competitive community members ranging from players to helpers to casters. All 4 members are from the TF2 Coaching Central Discord group, which has been sort of my unofficial sponsor for anything competitive related. If I need info, I go to these guys for help. Check them out in the description below if you're interested in starting any kind of career in competitive Team Fortress 2. The competitive community, within my fan base anyway, seems to have a not so great look. We've already discussed that one man's word is probably the root of this, but I can vouch that it isn't just him. I get quite a few comments, and every now and again I get 1 or 2 jackasses that feel the need to tell me that I don't play competitive, so my opinions, research, and production is essentially in vain, and if I have to be honest, it was demoralizing for a while, but at this point it happens frequently enough that it hardly even phases me anymore. The point that I'm making is that elitist assholes do exist in every hobby or clique. Literally anything you do will attract the little trolls and the hate mongers out from their crevices, but they are typically a vocal minority. Since I've integrated competitive segments into some of the series, I've met more than a few competitive players, and almost all of them are wonderful people. Meet Your Match wasn't a fair representation of the competitive community, and I wanted to give the general community a chance in the spotlight rather than your usual Froyo Tech big names. So, who are you, and what's your history with competitive Team Fortress 2? Did you know it's been 28 minutes and 5 seconds? At least? So here's the thing, I wanted to include everything in this video with the interviews and everything, but the runtime's it's just getting up there. So I'm going to upload a second video, day and date and time, with this video that features all of the interviews all on their own. Consider it a part 2. It should go live right now. So if you're interested, please head over and watch it on its own, you know, video link or whatever. But for here, this is where I'm going to cut it. Meet Your Match had a lot of good and bad with it, and the interviewees had a lot to say about the competitive scene and the update itself. For reference, with the interviews, it's getting to be almost an hour long. I just want to give a huge thank you to TF2 Coaching Central for all of its staff in helping me, you know, get this video to be possible. A lot of these interviews originally happened back in April, so a lot of the events or the things that they're talking about were current for April, but not so much now. To give a little bit of context as to how long it's taken to write and organize all of this, Shelly Chang, who I interviewed, you may have noticed she said she had just started playing whenever we interviewed, but now, when I was getting the approval and the okay to post this video and advertise it as a TF2 Coaching Central collaboration, a bunch of people pointed at her and told me she was the leader of the group. Which I don't know if that's changed or if that's, an involvement, but good for her, I guess. Starach was the main source behind a lot of the pro banning stuff. He thought that it would be appropriate if I mentioned all of that because he had some counter thoughts toward a lot of the original script, which was very interesting. Nobody else gave me as much input as he did. He thought a lot of it was valid, but there was more context to go with it. So thank you to him for, giving me feedback and helping, proofread the script, I guess. Just one last time, big thank you to all of them for helping me with all of this. It wasn't easy, and there were a lot of times where I just had to message them and go, hey, what did you say about this again? Is this okay for me to say? And as a big disclaimer, a lot of those interviews, as with most interviews, I edited a lot of it down. There was a lot of dead air, there was a lot of silence, and there was a lot of repeating themselves. I did not try to make them look bad or try to rewrite their thoughts in any way. I don't know if any of it's changed, but what they said is what they said, and I spent a lot of time making sure that they weren't misrepresented, and a lot of time with them to make sure they weren't misrepresented. So thank you for watching, thank them for helping, and thank me for getting it all done in a timely manner, I guess. I wasn't convinced this was ever going to be finished. So, with all of that said, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.